Next, we move on to another common entity, another challenging situations, retinal vasculitis, stepwise investigations and management, and which will be dealt by Dr. Mudit Tyagi from LVPI Hyderabad. Mudit has got extensive experience in retinal vasculitis cases, and he will give a talk on retinal vasculitis and will make it very basic.
All right, so good morning, everyone. First of all, let me thank Dr. JB sir and the scientific committee for having me here. So I'll be talking essentially about how to identify vasculitis, what all can we do, and how can we go around in ordering some tests and then tackling these conditions. Now, what do we mean by vasculitis? First of all, it's a condition or a complication of inflammatory disorders characterized by inflammation of the vessels. It can be isolated, but sometimes it can be also an association of sight-threatening complications, including various infective, autoimmune, inflammatory, or neoplastic disorders either. So if you look at the clinical manifestations, how do vasculitic disorders appear in front of us? And you can have various manifestations of this. You can have sclerosed vessels, you can have vasculitis, perivascular sheathing, exudation at the center or even around the vessels, and also associated signs of ischemia and retinitis. So you may have retinal nerve fiber layer infarcts, or what we call cotton wool spots, as well as associated retinitis. And we will go on to step by step importance and clinical implications of all of these entities. In terms of classification, how do you classify them? You can either label them as large vessel, medium, or small vessels, which is how the International Chapel Hill Consensus classification dealt with. So if you look at it, basically the most of the common manifestations that we see are associated with the small vessel vasculitis, which end up affecting a lot of these diseases. So in terms of morphology, how do you label them? Your vasculitis can be skip vasculitis, where you can have a vasculitic patch somewhere here, an area of quiescence or no inflammation, and then subsequently another area of vasculitis, so what you call a skip vasculitis. You may have confluent all throughout involvement of the vessel, is what we call a confluent vasculitis, or you may have something called a frosted branch angiitis. And I will come to the reasons and the etiology behind all of them subsequently. You can also have a hemorrhagic vasculitis, where you also have signs of occlusion and extensive hemorrhages along with signs of ischemia, some infarcts, and sometimes also an associated retinitis in these eyes. So hemorrhagic, skip, confluent, and frosted branch angiitis, the four common morphological patterns of vasculitis that you might encounter when you see these eyes. You can also have something called a Chiari-Lees vasculitis, where you see these plaques lining the endothelium, something which is usually characteristic of toxoplasma, but can also occasionally be seen in other disorders. Also remember, if you see occlusive vasculitis with extensive signs of ischemia and areas of extensive peripheral capillary non-perfusion, it becomes important for us to rule out a very sight-threatening as well as life-threatening disease called Takayasu arthritis. So if you see extensive neovascularization, peripheral signs of ischemia, your FFA shows this entire area of capillary non-perfusion, becomes important to just go and get the BP checked in both the limbs. And if you see a asymmetry, you know that you probably are dealing with Takayasu, and then you can refer your patients to a physician or a rheumatologist for further systemic evaluation and management. So identifying vasculitis can not only be important for saving the eyes of a patient, but can also be a very important step in saving their lives. So no perivascular exudation is seen. Now that we have identified or looked at vasculitis in terms of its morphology, let us look at it in terms of its etiology as to what can be the different causes of vasculitis. You may have different various infections, including bacterial, viral, and sometimes occasionally even fungi. Or you can have common non-infectious diseases, which can include SLE, Wegener's, relapsing polychondritis, even masquerades, and occasionally drug-induced and sarcoid and Behçet's. So what are the clinical clues that can help us in identifying these etiologies, and how can we then go around subsequently managing these patients? So there are subtle clinical signs which itself can help us in identifying the underlying etiology. So let me just state some of them. Look at subvascular pigmentary patches, broad-based synechia. If you see them, TB can be a strong possibility. A unifocal retinitis lesion, if you see, along with no hemorrhages, vitritis, you see neurosensory detachment, signs of bacillary layer detachment, toxoplasma. Unifocal retinitis associated with extensive hemorrhages, no vitritis, which essentially means that your patient does not have the ability to mount an immune response, and therefore the amount of posterior manifestations that you see are not commensurate with the vitritis or AC reaction. Think of CMV retinitis. If you see a mobile hypopyon, history of genital and aphthous ulcers, Behçet's disease, peripheral synechia, diffuse KPs, raised intraocular pressure, sarcoidosis. So these are certain clinical signs, which let me just illustrate a few of them. So broad-based synechiae, like what you see over here, subvascular CRA patches. The moment you see some of these, and Dr. Kalpana Babu had also shown some of those images earlier, think of TB. So ocular signs which can possibly be a clue to underlying ocular tuberculosis, broad-based synechiae in your patient with vasculitis, and more importantly, subvascular CRA patches. Rule out lung involvement in these cases, check for lymphadenopathy, look for any other site of extrapulmonary involvement over there. You see multiple synechiae, KPs, you see these inferior small granulomas in the periphery, think of ocular sarcoidosis. In cases of sarcoidosis, obviously you need to look at other systemic signs, rule out lung involvement, check for any skin lesions like erythema nodosum, lupus pernio. Dry eyes is one of the most common ocular manifestations of sarcoidosis, so look for that in history as well as in an examination. Your patient may occasionally also have a renal cardiac involvement and arthritis, so you need to get a systemic evaluation done for patients whom you are labeling as ocular sarcoidosis. You see patients with mobile hypopyon, extensive peripheral vasculitis, and an FFA showing this fern leaf sort of an appearance. Your diagnosis kind of becomes simpler. You are dealing with probably Behçet's disease. So like I said, look for history of oral ulcers and genital ulcers, look for any skin lesions, all of these points, and you know that probably Behçet's is the underlying etiology behind the vasculitis that you just saw. Signs of digital gangrene, necrotizing scleritis, you probably know you're dealing with Wegener's. Look also for cartilaginous lesions. So if you see a patient who has got nasal cartilage or auricular cartilage loss, your two probable diagnoses are either a Hansen's disease or what we used to call leprosy earlier, or a relapsing polychondritis. So a good systemic evaluation in itself can help you in arriving at a lot of etiologies without resorting to a lot of systemic or lab investigations. Takayasu, we have already had a discussion, so let me just skip that quickly. Look for systemic signs as claudication of extremities, decreased brachial artery pulse, BP difference of more than 10. In terms of SLE, look for any butterfly rash, chronic cutaneous lesions, oral ulcers, alopecia, synovitis. So if you see a patient with combined retinal artery and vein occlusion, think of SLE as one of your probable differentials. So if we sum up all of this together and try to come up with an algorithm, look for a few of these signs. Look for a focal coloretinal involvement. You see a retinitis lesion, like what Dr. Kalpana Ma'am had also said, when you see a retinitis lesion, think first of an infection. So infections are, all retinitis are infectious unless proven otherwise. The only probable exception to that is Behçet's. You see a choroiditis lesion, think of infection, either TB. You see subvascular scars, think of TB also as one of those causes. If there is an arterial involvement, no sheathing, usually occlusive, non-infectious. If there is a perivascular sheathing or intra-arterial plaques, again infectious. And we just saw chiariles, which usually can be a clue to toxo also. Now, how do you go around a case of a hemorrhagic retinal vasculitis? You rule out TB and Behçet's, and then you see if, also remember, not now but a few years back, we were seeing a lot of these hemorrhagic vasculitis, which was a reported complication of intraocular vancomycin. So take a good clinical history as well as drug history in these cases. So let me just show you one more case. So this was a patient who came to us. You see, all right, I still have 2 minutes, I presume, but I'll quickly wrap it up. Yeah, you see these vasculitis, you see areas of exudation. When you get an FFA done, sometimes you start seeing some of these aneurysms over here. You see aneurysms, you see vasculitis, you see retinitis signs. You're basically dealing with IR1. So why IR1? Because you are seeing these Y-shaped aneurysm affecting the arterial bifurcations. Behçet's we have already had our discussion about. I will skip some of these slides because we should just quickly understand some of these other lesions. So you see a patient with extensive peripheral retinitis along with signs of vasculitis, your diagnosis becomes simpler. You are dealing with the case of acute retinal necrosis. Syphilis, one more emerging entity where we are seeing a lot of involvement of patients with ocular syphilis, and as a rule we do get all of our patients with uveitis investigated for treponemal as well as non-treponemal tests. So if those come positive, your diagnosis again becomes simpler. You are dealing with ocular syphilis in these cases. History of fever, vasculitis, you are dealing probably with a post-fever retinitis. So again, a good history and a good evaluation helps us in arriving at these etiologies subsequently. ARN we already discussed. If you see extensive peripheral retinitis with signs of vasculitis, think of ARN. So the point over here is, if you see a vasculitis, it becomes important for us to also check for the retinal periphery, because for all that you know, you may see a peripheral area of retinitis lurking in the periphery, and which can be a clue to a viral etiology and an ARN. This actually is the case with an extensive ARN, which is not difficult to diagnose, and you see this lot of occlusive peripheral vasculitis that you see in these eyes. So non-infectious occlusive vasculitis, predominantly SLE, polyarthritis nodosa and Takayasu. So the moment you see these non-infectious ones, there are specific investigations that we need to do. You need to look for the ANA as well as ANCA in these eyes. You also need to probably discuss with your rheumatologist, because these eyes and these patients will need a rheumatological treatment and involvement too. So we have already had a discussion on these. If can I just take one more minute, Dr.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So now, apart from that, what are the treatments that we also need to offer? You need to obviously manage the inflammation. If it's an infective disease, the treatment becomes simpler. You just need to take care of the underlying infection along with the inflammation. If it is a non-infectious vasculitis, you need to take care of the inflammation. Steroids are needed. Sometimes these patients may also need long-term immunosuppression. Apart from that, we also need to manage the long-term sequelae of these patients. Subsequently, these eyes may develop peripheral ischemia, and therefore you may need to do a laser to take care of the ischemia. You need to take care of the inflammation which is there, which is also the cause of the visual loss. So you need to take care of the causes, which may be a hemorrhage, ischemia, subsequent TRDs that can occur, and a retinal artery occlusion. So what are general investigations? We have already discussed. You need to look at CRP, sugar levels. You need to specifically tailor some of your investigations based on the disease you are dealing with. So if it's a toxo, you need to just look, it's predominantly a clinical diagnosis. If you are suspecting CMV retinitis, then you need to look at HIV, you need to rule out immunosuppression, get the CD4 counts done. We have already discussed about TB and Behçet's and what we need to do for them. Other investigations which may be necessary in atypical cases are syphilis. So remember, like I said, we usually do rule out ocular syphilis for all of our cases of uveitis. If you are suspecting signs of multiple sclerosis and MRI brain, and a very important but simple test is a peripheral blood smear, because that can help you in ruling out underlying leukemias and lymphomas. So treatment, we have already said you need to treat the underlying inflammation as well as the infection if it's a case of an infective etiology. And subsequently, you need to consult a rheumatologist if you have got an underlying predominant arterial involvement, because SCQ will be the likely drug of choice in SLE. These patients need to continue immunosuppression. You need to subsequently, like I said, do a laser photocoagulation to take care of the peripheral ischemias. Rarely, surgical intervention may be needed in case of hemorrhages, fractional detachments, and in cases of recurrence, basically, surgical intervention sometimes also helps in reducing the load of inflammation. So how to treat recurrences? Most important thing, if you are seeing multiple recurrences, reconsider radiology. Sometimes you may have just ended up erring on making a wrong diagnosis. Uveitis a lot of times requires all of us to go back to the basics, revisit the entire cycle, and realize that probably we need to treat a patient sometimes differently. And like I said, for anterior recurrences, treat with topical steroids. You may need to taper. Some cases, sometimes you may need to step up your immunosuppression. In case of posterior recurrence, recheck your diagnosis, start steroids and immunosuppressants, and do a slow taper of your steroids. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mudit, for the elegant demonstrations of the retinal vasculitis. I like your flow chart and the stepwise approach. This is very helpful. This will be very helpful for the general ophthalmologist in treating a case of retinal vasculitis. Although it's not that very common compared to the uveitis, retinal vasculitis poses a challenge in the diagnosis and